Everyone talks about the money in retirement. Save enough. Plan the pension. Talk to a financial advisor. Nobody tells you about the Tuesday that comes 8 months later. There's a particular Monday that almost everyone who retires experiences, though almost nobody talks about it in advance. No alarm, no commute, no emails waiting, no boss expecting anything from you by 9. At first, it feels like exactly what you spent decades waiting for, but a few weeks in, something strange starts to happen. A question arrives quietly, usually while you're standing in the kitchen with nowhere in particular to be. What am I supposed to do now? Here's what almost nobody tells you before you get there. You can retire from a job. That part is simple. A date on a calendar, a final paycheck, a small office party. But retiring from the identity you spent 30 or 40 years building around that job is a completely different task. And it's one nobody hands you instructions for. That's why the hardest part of retirement may have nothing to do with money. Chapter 1. The Hidden Psychology of Retirement. Let's talk about what's actually happening underneath that strange Monday feeling, because it isn't confusion, and it certainly isn't ingratitude. It's psychology, and it's remarkably consistent. For most of adulthood, a career quietly does far more than pay the bills. It gives you a routine that organizes your entire day without you needing to think about it. It gives you a professional identity, a way to answer the question, "Who are you?" without hesitation. It gives you regular, built-in opportunities to feel useful, to be needed by someone, for something, on a schedule. It gives you social contact you didn't have to arrange yourself, and it gives you a steady stream of small external validation, a colleague's thanks, a completed project, a problem solved. Retirement removes all of that in a single stroke and replaces it with something people spend their whole working lives dreaming about: enormous, unstructured freedom. Here's the part that surprises almost everyone. Freedom and purpose are not the same thing. You can have an abundance of one and feel a complete absence of the other. Humans don't only need comfort, and we don't only need rest. We need structure, we need connection, we need contribution, and we need meaning. Retirement, for all its comfort, doesn't automatically provide any of those four. It simply clears the space where they used to live. Let me tell you about a man we'll call David. David spent 38 years as an engineer. For nearly 4 decades, when someone asked who he was, he never had to think about the answer. He had a title, a workplace, colleagues who relied on him, problems that needed solving every single day that only he had the particular expertise to solve. Then, one Friday afternoon, it all stopped. A small gathering in the break room, a card everyone signed. And on Monday, for the first time since he was 24 years old, there was nowhere David needed to be. The first month felt like a long overdue rest. But by the 3rd month, David found himself doing something he never expected, driving past his old office just to see it. Not because he missed the work, exactly. He missed the version of himself the work had made obvious. Without it, he wasn't quite sure who was standing in his own kitchen each morning. David wasn't experiencing a crisis. He was experiencing something almost universal and remarkably well understood by psychologists who study this exact transition. This is where the first key begins. Chapter 2. Key 1. Rebuild your identity, not your career. Here's the first thing worth understanding clearly, and I want to say it in a way that avoids sounding like a cliché, because it's easy to hear this and nod without really absorbing it. You are not your job. But that sentence on its own isn't especially useful. What's more useful is understanding why it feels so untrue for so long. Careers become invisible identities. Someone spends 30 years as a teacher, and eventually, "I was a teacher," stops feeling like a job description and starts feeling like a fact about who they are. The same happens for a manager, an accountant, a nurse, a machinist, a small business owner. The role and the self quietly fuse together, so slowly you never notice it happening. And then retirement arrives and forces a question most people have never had to sit with directly. Who am I when I am no longer doing that? Here is the shift that actually helps. Instead of asking, "What did I do?" ask a different question entirely. What qualities did that work reveal about me? A retired teacher might realize, sitting with this question honestly, I wasn't just teaching, I was helping people grow. A retired engineer, like David, might realize, I wasn't just designing systems, I loved solving difficult problems nobody else could figure out. A retired nurse might realize, I wasn't just working in healthcare. Caring for people in their hardest moments gave my life its meaning. Notice what's happening in each of those sentences. The job title falls away. What remains is something deeper, something that was never actually tied to a building, a paycheck, or a business card. That deeper quality is portable. It can move with you into this next chapter fully intact, even though the job that once expressed it is gone. Here's a practical exercise worth sitting with, maybe with a notepad of your own. Ask yourself honestly, what did your career actually allow you to express? It might be teaching. It might be creating. It might be solving problems. It might be helping, leading, protecting, connecting, or building. Most careers, if you look closely enough, were really just one particular container for one or two of these deeper qualities. David's engineering career was a container for problem solving. The container is gone now. The quality inside it is still entirely his. These qualities, not the job title, become the foundation of the next chapter. But discovering who you are is only half of the equation. The next question is much harder. Where does that identity actually go now? What do you do with a quality like, I love solving problems, once there's no longer an office waiting for you on Monday morning? Chapter 3. Key 2. Replace the old structure with meaningful structure. Retirement hands people something they spent decades wishing for: time. An almost unimaginable amount of it compared to what a working life allows. And here is the part that surprises nearly everyone who reaches this stage. Unlimited time without structure doesn't feel like the gift it was expected to be. It starts to feel strangely uncomfortable. Days blur together. Weeks pass without a clear sense of where they went. There's an important distinction worth making here between free time and meaningful time. Free time is simply the absence of obligation. Meaningful time is intentionally shaped, built around things that actually matter to you. Instead of a week defined by, I have nothing to do, consider building a week around a small set of anchors. Not a rigid schedule, not a return to the demands of a career. Just a handful of intentional touch points that give each day a sense of direction. It might look something like this. Monday, given to learning something new, a language, an instrument, a subject you never had time for. Tuesday, given to social connection, a standing coffee with a friend, a call to a family member. Wednesday, given to a personal project, something with your hands or your mind. That's entirely yours. Thursday, given to helping someone, a neighbor, a grandchild, a cause you care about. Friday, given to some form of adventure or exploration, a new trail, a museum you've never visited, a part of your own town you've never really seen. This isn't about filling every hour. The goal was never to replace one form of busyness with another. The goal is to give your mind something to anticipate. Structure, even light structure gives the brain a sense of forward motion, a reason Tuesday feels different from Thursday, instead of every day quietly folding into the same undefined stretch of time. Think of it this way. Retirement shouldn't be an empty calendar. It should be a calendar you finally get to design yourself for the first time in your entire adult life, according to what actually matters to you rather than what a job required of you. But even with identity rebuilt and structure restored, there's still one problem left, and it's the one most people don't expect. Chapter 4. Key 3. Find a way to be needed. This is the part of retirement psychology that carries the most emotional weight, and it's worth slowing down for. Many people quietly assume retirement is about finally becoming unnecessary. That the years of being needed by a boss, a team, a family depending on your paycheck have come to a natural close, and what's left is simply rest. But psychologically, this assumption misses something essential. Humans don't only need rest. We need to feel that we still matter, not because we need a job, because we need contribution. Purpose, more often than not, comes from being useful to someone beyond yourself. That might look like mentoring someone younger, helping raise grandchildren, teaching a skill you spent decades mastering, volunteering for a cause, supporting your community, creating something and sharing it, passing along hard-won experience to someone who hasn't earned it yet, helping another retiree find their own footing in this same transition. Here's an important clarification, because this idea can easily be misheard. This is not a suggestion that people in retirement must constantly serve others or stay perpetually busy to justify their days. That would simply trade one kind of exhaustion for another. What this actually means is having something, even something small, that produces a specific, quiet feeling. My presence makes a difference. Not my productivity, my presence. Let me tell you about a man named Harold, who many of you may recognize from another story we've told before, because his experience captures this key almost perfectly. Harold spent decades running a small hardware store. In his first months of retirement, he felt genuinely aimless, capable hands, and no longer any place that seemed to want them. Then, almost by accident, a neighbor's fence needed fixing, and Harold, without much thought, offered to help. That one small fence became a habit. Then, without either of them planning it, Harold began teaching a few younger neighbors the basics, how to hold a hammer properly, how to measure twice before cutting once, small things that had become second nature to him after a lifetime of practice. Harold never called this a mission or a purpose in any grand sense. He called it something to do on Tuesdays. But when you looked closely, it held everything this key describes. He wasn't busy for the sake of being busy. He was needed in a small, specific, human way by people who genuinely benefited from what 30 years had taught him. He said something once that captures this key better than any research paper could. I used to think retirement meant nobody needed me anymore. It turns out I just hadn't found who needed me yet. Maybe purpose doesn't disappear when your career ends. Maybe your career was only ever one particular place where your purpose happened to express itself. Once you understand that, the search stops being, what do I do with the rest of my life, and starts being simply, where else can this part of me be useful now? Chapter 5. The Deeper Reward. Let's bring these three keys together, because separately, each one is useful. Together, they answer something much larger. Retirement was never really about asking, what should I do with all this free time? That question on its own tends to lead nowhere, because free time isn't the actual goal. The deeper, more useful question is this: what is worth giving my time to now? Key 1 is rebuilding your identity. You are more than the role you retired from. The deeper qualities that role expressed in you are still fully intact and still entirely yours to carry forward. Key 2 is building meaningful structure. Freedom on its own tends to feel unexpectedly hollow. It becomes fulfilling the moment you intentionally shape it, the way David shaped his weeks. Key 3 is finding a way to contribute. Purpose grows quietly but reliably when your experience continues to matter to someone else, even in something as small as Harold's Tuesday mornings in his workshop. Here, as promised, is a simple framework worth sitting with, maybe with a pen in hand, because this is the part meant to be used, not just watched. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, what do I still love? What activities make you lose track of time entirely, the way hours used to disappear during a good day at work? Second, what am I good at? What knowledge or ability or instinct has an entire lifetime of experience quietly built into you, whether or not you've ever thought of it as a skill? Third, who could benefit from what I know? Where, specifically, could your particular experience make someone else's life a little easier, a little richer, a little less alone? Where those 3 answers overlap, what you love, what you're good at, and who could actually use it, that overlap is very often where the next chapter of purpose quietly begins. Not loudly, not as a grand new mission. Usually, the way it did for Harold, as something small enough to simply call something to do on Tuesdays. Retirement doesn't mean your most meaningful years are behind you. You may simply be entering a stage where, for the first time in your entire adult life, you finally have the freedom to choose what your experience is for. The first chapter of your life may have been about building a career. The next chapter can be about building meaning. Not by replacing what you built with something equally demanding, but by finally directing everything you've already built toward whatever you decide actually matters now. And perhaps the greatest reward of this next stage isn't having more time. It's finally knowing what your time is worth. You didn't retire from life. You retired from one way of living it. I'd love to know, what is one thing you would love to give your time to in this next chapter? Tell me in the comments. Someone reading, standing right at the beginning of their own version of this transition, may need exactly that idea today.